I had a lineup that really was starting to kind of move up the ranks a little bit. And by the time the afternoon game slate started, I had worked myself into first place, and now I have to sweat out a couple of minutes um, and kind of watch everything go. And I did, and I watched everything, and I've got my name up there. It says $1 million, and it's 6:30 Central Time, and things have ended. And this was probably the first time that I had to learn the heartbreak that there could be a stat correction a little bit after the game's end. So I'm in first place, and literally, I know Tyson and I are like, oh, this just really happened. You know, we had called a couple of close friends and a couple people that we knew, and we're like, I think we just won this contest and whatnot. Anyways, a stat correction ended up moving me down to second place, which is still good. It was 400,000. Still a great win for the day, but close to getting that $1 million. Not quite there.
What's up, everyone? Tyler Tamboline here, aka ToeTagginTambo, and on this episode of Behind the Mind, gonna talk to my girl Kristi. Goes by Krayton on FanDuel, also plays on DraftKings, but first came across playing against her over on FanDuel in the satellites, the live finals. She plays baseball, NBA, NFL, had high level of success at all of them. Got to meet her at some live finals in the past, so she crushes at everything. Tons of scores, 50K or more. She talks about her lifestyle, her journey, and it took her around 4 years, she said, just to get into the big scores and the big swing of things. And get this, her first ever big score, $400,000 after a stat correction, dropping her down from 1 million to lose 600,000 on the stat correction. So she breaks all that down and more. Let's get in and talk to Kristi and go behind the mind. All right, so super excited for this one. Got my girl Kristi here with me. She goes by Krayton on FanDuel. I'm not actually sure exact name, maybe the same on DraftKings, but I'll bring you right in, Kristi. Thank you so much for doing this, and excited to have you here today to get your insight on going behind your mind.
Absolutely. I appreciate the invite, Tyler. I feel like I've known you for a long time. I've had the opportunity to meet you in person, which has been phenomenal. Met both you and your wife in Nashville a couple of years ago, but super pumped to do this project with you and just kind of connect on a lot of different topics.
Yeah, likewise. Awesome time meeting you, and also just talking to you in the past and having some of these conversations. I also prefer a little interview podcast type thing than having you chasing me down in all these live finals that I've come second to you in and all that. So congrats to you. Obviously a ton of success along the way. We'll talk about that. Pretty interesting story, that you have. So let's hop into that right out of the gates a little bit. And I will let you know before we start off, it's the same running joke now, but I keep the old junior high basketball rule, 2-pass rule. So if there's any questions you want to pass on, a couple of them you can, but the house rule, the first question is one that you can't pass on. Just tell us a little bit about your background, even before DFS and maybe current, what you do now, what you do for a living, anything you care to share when it comes to that stuff, your background.
Absolutely. I'd love to. So I grew up on a farm actually in Hills, Minnesota. So kind of grew up in the Midwest. I grew up with a family. I have 3 brothers, and we've all been sports fans for as young as I can remember. And I've played pretty much basketball, volleyball. My brothers were big football fans. And so in our household, it was like we had the radio on, checking out games, watching TV, watching sports, playing sports outside. And all the way up till now, where actually my brother Rex is a head football coach, and he is coaching his team to a hopeful state Minnesota football championship here at US Bank Stadium on Saturday. So pretty excited about that. I've got 2 nephews that are playing. I have a brother that's an athletic director there. So it's kind of coming full circle back to my stomping grounds. We're still playing the sports there in Hills. So, but for me, background about myself, I went to college, have a finance marketing background, But I always knew sports would be a part of it someday. Didn't know it would actually be in the DFS realms, but I've also always loved numbers and investments. And on the investment side, I ended up getting into wealth management and the trust business. So I've been doing this for 25 years. So I'm
Oh, wow.
actually I'm regional wealth manager for a regional bank based out of Sioux Falls, South Dakota. And I manage a team. I oversee the upper and lower Midwest. So I oversee 4 states. So I've got a large daytime job, which I absolutely love. It fulfills a ton for me, but being able to do the sports stuff is something that fulfills the side for me that just fills that passion for sports that I have. And how I got into DFS is kind of a really interesting story. I've played fantasy sports really since I was in high school and college. When I got to the bank here back in 2014, a couple of guys are like, "Hey, we know you love the sports stuff. You always seem to beat us. You should check out this daily fantasy sports stuff. Have you heard of Roto Grinders? Have you heard of FanDuel? Have you heard of DraftKings?" And I really hadn't. I really hadn't been exposed to any of it. And they got me kind of started with FanDuel, and I started playing a little bit over there back in October of 2014. So it's actually coming up on my 10-year anniversary of playing DFS. And anyways, kind of started out that way and started having some success. And here we are 10 years later. I never in a million years thought I'd be where I'm at, being able to do what I love, plus very much involved in the industry.
Yeah, no, it's amazing. It's just a family affair dating back. You talked about all this stuff with your family. I happen to have you on Snapchat, sick brag over here, but I've seen you with your family at these events and having fun with it. So that's awesome. I do want to just go back to that too, though, because it's funny. I know, especially because you play on FanDuel a lot and you do have your little anniversary date that they give you right on like the main screen. And I know mine started sort of a little bit before because I just signed up for it when I was playing Yahoo Fantasy Football. And then like season long stuff. And then what ended up happening was I really started taking it serious maybe 3 years after I kind of had an account. I wish I had been this invested in my time and energy and passion at the beginning, because obviously the games were a little bit easier, they say, back then than they are now.
Exactly. So true.
Yeah, I think that was the main case. So I was going to say just real quick, when did you start taking it more serious? And what was your beginning like? And I asked this on each episode as well, but somebody asked me one time and I lost 5, 6, 7,000 probably before I even started winning, at least 5,000. And that's what I talked about on the interview that I did way back in the day. It was definitely at least $5,000. It was slow and steady. I was losing $25 here, $20, and like it was going on. Felt like I was getting something for my money. And in the end, it was an education and some experience, which now has helped me in the long run. But the goal of DFS Mastermind is to help people skip some of these mistakes, hopefully these costly mistakes, get better, adapt to the new age game, which we'll spend more time on later. But what was your start like when you started taking it seriously? And then what was your first big win or your memorable moment, if you can remember?
Yeah, exactly. For me, I had literally no idea what I was doing. I know a couple of the guys that I worked with in the accounting department. They were trying to explain to me there's cash games, there's tournament games, and I was trying to dabble a little bit in both, trying to figure out, what am I doing? What does it look like? And so it felt like I don't know for sure how long it took, but it was several months of just trying to figure out, what does this even look like? What sports am I good at? And for me, it started with football because I just was always a fantasy football player. Fast forward to today, I'm a big fantasy football player, but I also do NBA and I also do baseball. And honestly, when I look at all 3 of them, baseball is actually the one I probably love the most because there's so much of a correlation with the numbers and what they tell you and how to kind of build your lineups, which we can get into later. But for me, it was just kind of playing around and figuring out what it looks like. And so as far as, how successful I was doing, I didn't really keep as good a track probably early on in the process. But I started having some success. I was playing a lot of cash games then. So I was doing a lot of 50-50s, some head-to-heads, things like that. And then I did have a couple of smaller single entry wins on the football side where I took down a couple of contests. And I remember winning $5,000 on one. And I'm like, oh my gosh. I mean, it was just a great feeling. I'm like, okay. So I kind of started, gearing more towards tournaments and stuff, but I would say it was probably more of a slow, steady grind up until, probably, I want to say it was probably 2017 when I started realizing, and this is probably where I encountered you a lot in the streets, because it felt like you and I were battling it out for different tickets for bigger contests. You know, a lot of times we'd be 1 and 2 many nights. I remember seeing your name all the time, and you were so successful. And that's why it's so cool to have this conversation with you today, because I feel like you and I kind of found a niche there. And I found my way into other entry fees where I was able to win a couple of bigger contests that way.
Yeah, I talk about the secrets of satellites all the time. I actually will.
Yep.
We'll go there shortly. Actually, I could just go there now, but I have a couple other questions just on the background stuff, so I don't want to go all over the place. But that is funny, and I was Krayton every single night. And it's if I got you, I was like, this is before I knew you, knew who you were, knew anything. And I'm thinking, man, Krayton just dominates all the time. And then finally start getting some tickets from you, and it's just a great way that you can get in. So we'll go there shortly. But just real quick, I had one I always ask is if someone plays professionally, I say, what do you tell your family around the Thanksgiving dinner table? We're recording this late November 2024. I'll date the show, but just to say it, Thanksgiving, American Thanksgiving. I'm Canadian, but I always celebrate American Thanksgiving with all my friends because we're watching football, we're playing DFS, et cetera, et cetera. But do you just still tell people around the table your real life job? You're just, I'm in wealth management. You're not going to tell them about FanDuel and DraftKings and whatnot, are you?
Yeah, exactly. You know, a lot of my family, I have a brother that has been kind of on this journey with me too, because Tyson is his name, and he does a lot of sports when he has time, but he has 4 kids and a job too. So it's harder for him to do some of those things. But my family's starting to know that, yeah, I do have some of these things that I do on the side. They know I've had some success and things like that. So they kind of joke around with it and have a good time. But I would say by and large, there's a whole ton of people that have no idea that, I'm doing what I'm doing, where I'm working full time plus trying to do some sports and things like that on the side.
Yeah. And this is the spot I'll bring this up because, I talked to you pre-show about it. I said, I always want to make sure so I don't toe the line here, but I think there is, the elephant in the room a little bit. I do a ton of DFS content. I've played DFS for many years. I've been to a ton of live finals and got to meet all kinds of great people, yourself included. You do not see a lot of women in the daily fantasy sports space. And to me, that's intriguing, interesting. Obviously, always we joke all the time. Oh, a girl's watching the show, or a woman stepped in and watched the show. Like, this is great news. We got 1% viewership. Why is it that you think that, because anybody can play, it doesn't matter. It's a game. It's a strategy game. You put your money up. If you're good, you can beat. That doesn't matter at all. So why do you think more women don't play DFS? There's a bunch popping up. Love it all. I think it's amazing, but you don't see as many getting into it. I try and get my wife to play in the showdown streets, just throw a lineup in, and then she's putting inactive guys in. It's like, hey, just because he looks good, he's not even playing tonight. So I get the game you're playing here, but they got to be playing in the game to go into the lineup. So she'll play a single, like one lineup into the lottery or something. But just to throw that your way, what is it that you think not as many women play? And what do you think we could do to get more women involved? Obviously, I like growing the game and trying to make it better for everyone. What do you think?
Yeah, I think you're onto something. I think there is sometimes an intimidation factor for women, just because I talked to a lot of different women too. And I think a lot of them are surprised, like, really, you do that? And you're like, compete, But I think once they get around the like, oh, I could do that too. I think it's just something so different, and it has been so male dominated that sometimes people are intimidated by not knowing what they don't know. So I think just encouraging and getting people involved. I think there are a lot of women out there that, enjoy sports as much as I do. And I know I've met a couple of them along the way. I think it's what I haven't seen is someone probably like myself where they keep doing it, 10 years into it, because it is demanding. There's a lot to it. There's a lot to keep up on. But I think, once you get past the intimidation, I think, you're so encouraging about it too. Like, you're trying to invite as many people as you can to the game. It doesn't matter if you're male or female, but I do think women can let themselves be a little bit intimidated from time to time.
Yeah, certainly a bunch that aren't. I've got lots of friends, Kay Gould is a good friend of mine. She crushes. D-Gas, she's been at the live finals with me. Stephanie, Joanne, there's just a bunch of other girls and ladies that I can think of out there that are grinding and playing the game like everybody else. And I just think it's awesome. And the more people that can get involved, the better. It's not meant to be for one or the other. It's just a sense that, a lot of people are looking at this game and thinking it's all men. And you go to these, I'll say it like it is. The nice thing about me, and it's my own set up here, my passion project is, it's a sausage fest at this live final. And, all these dudes in a room and got to get out, it says that thing. And some bring their wives, but even the wives will start to congregate. And they're like, it's funny, but it's just one of those things is the guys that make the live finals and their wives that come with them, their wives actually, it's the like opposites attract thing. They're not that into DFS and they're kind of like, oh, I don't want to listen to you talk about this even more. I got to listen to it enough at the house and hear you tilting and throwing things around and getting pissed off. So kind of funny in that sense, but I appreciate your sense on that. And just obviously it's awesome to see your success and shows, if you could do it, I can do it. If anybody can do it, anybody can get into the game. So I love that angle.
100%.
What is it you would say, just touching on some of that stuff, just the live finals and the success and, you're winning trophies, things like that. What do you think it is for you? Is it just a way to stay competitive, or, is it because you are a super competitive person with brothers and in football and all that stuff, that's what this brings out of you? Because that's kind of what it is for me. It's a way I can still stay competitive. My activities involve the gym just to stay healthy, not jumping up on stage, painting myself gold in any, strongman shows, and to be around my kids and be healthy for them and run around and have fun and hide and seek and stuff like that. So this keeps the competitive juices flowing. I love it. I'm obsessed with it. And then I like sort of the chess angle, the strategy side. So what is it for you?
Oh, very, very similar, Tyler. I've often been told by multiple people, you're the most competitive person I've met, Kristi. Even our regional president here at the bank said, I have not met anyone more competitive you. And like, I don't know if that's a compliment or if that's a good thing or a bad thing. But at the end of the day, I like being competitive because I want to be around the best. I want to be exposed to the best. I want to win. I was that way in sports. I'm that way in life. I'm that way in my business. Everything I do, I want to do well. I know I can't be that way all the time, but I want to be looking to get there. And I think I saw that in you too, Tyler, early on when I met you. You remind me a lot of myself. And it's a way for me to stay competitive. I also love relationships. I have met so many people across the country that I wouldn't have had exposure to had I not gotten involved in this. And there's this whole community that supports each other. Like you and I consider you a friend from a long time ago and someone that I could count on if I needed to talk through something with. You're always there. You're always available. You're always, how can I help? And just that positive mindset too. That's something that I do too, because DFS is something with a lot of ups and downs in it too. But I always try to stay focused, stay positive. I know your motto is nobody cares, work harder, and just always trying to get work. I love that. Just always working harder, trying to find that edge, but also supporting people. And, if it's not me winning tonight, it's, people that I can cheer and support on too. And I love that. And there's just so many great things about it, but I love the competitive aspect of it. It keeps me sharp and on my game. And like you said, kind of the chess part of it too. Just the strategy of everything, just great for the mind too.
All right, guys, that's going to do it for this episode of Behind the Mind. As always, if you want the rest of this episode, you can head over to dfsmastermind.com, get into the community, check it out. You get this, all the other interviews, the strategy, process, application videos that myself and other guests record. You get our Q&A roundtable sessions, the case studies where we deep dive on other DFS player pools and strategies and things that we can pull from that. Events for different sports coming up that we have, like PGA, NFL, where we do roundtables with that and help you learn about a new DFS sport. We'll have other events as well. And of course, the community is all built around community created content, DFS on demand, so to speak. So if you need anything, you can hit me up inside the community or on X at ToeTagginTambo. Thanks for watching.